If you're like me, you like free plugins. I mean, who doesn't, right? They are great. And today we're going to talk about a very cool plugin suite that you should definitely check out. Hi everyone, this is Garam, welcome back to my channel. Today, as I said, we're going to talk about free plugins, and the plugins we're going to talk about today are really cool. I use them all the time, every day in my mixes. I find them very useful and a little bit slipped down, which is, in my opinion, is a bit of a shame because I think they are great. And talking about Sonic Anomaly, maybe you're familiar with the name, maybe you have already heard them, maybe you have them. They are basically different variations on some kind of dynamic processor. So they were a little bit more known like a couple of years ago, and then they've kind of gone forgotten. I don't know. Part of the reason is that the website of these plugins is no more available online, and that's a shame. So how do you get them? If you are on Windows, you're good. You just need to go on Plugins for Free and download them. Very easy. I'm gonna leave the link below so you can just go there, download, and boom, you're good to go. If you are on Mac, I've got bad news for you. Unless you have Reaper, because these plugins are not available on Mac. But if you have Reaper, you can use them. The developer was smart enough, in my opinion, to also make these plugins available as a JSFX format, which allows you to use them on Reaper, which is great. So if you have Reaper, you're good, you can use them. And if you don't, well, you should just start using Reaper then. But since the website is down, you know, people just start thinking that they were no longer available on Mac in the JSFX format for Reaper. And that is false, because you can still have them. It's a little bit more fiddly than just downloading them on Plugins for Free, but you can still download them, and trust me, it's not difficult at all. So I'm gonna show you now how to download them on the JSFX format, and then we're gonna check it out on a mix I've been working on some time ago. So it's very easy actually to download them in the JSFX format. You basically have to go on GitHub and search for the repository of Sonic Anomaly. So basically, you just need to go on Google and type Sonic Anomaly plugins JSFX download, and then this link will appear. Just click on it. I'm gonna link it also in the description, and then you see you get to this page. This is the repository of all the plugins. So basically, here in this folder, you have the access to the code of all of them. If you click on plugins, you see here they are, all the plugins. So basically, you just need to go back here, just click on this little code button and click download zip. Just download the whole thing. Just unzip this folder and there's all your plugins. Now what you want to do is just go on Reaper and under the option tab and just click on this show Reaper resource path in Explorer/Finder, and this folder will come up. And as you can see, there is an effects folder, and this is where you want to put your plugins. So as you can see, there are already some of them because I have downloaded them. So if you want to add one, just go on the folder that we downloaded previously. As you can see, we have two type of files. We have the JSFX, which are the actual plugins, and then we have these GFX plugins, which is the graphic, I suppose, the graphical elements of the plugins. So for example, just to show you on a plugin that I am not using, for example, this surround pen. So basically what you want to do now is to go in the effects folder and create a new folder, and let's just call it surround pen JSFX. And then here, just drag this folder and the JSFX file, and you're done. Was it hard? No, it was not, but you just have to now restart Reaper. So now I have restarted Reaper. If you just open a plugin here and I search for surround pen, boom, there it is, JS surround pen 2.1. This is the surround pen from Sonic Anomaly, which is very cool, but not really useful for what we're doing here, which is mainly stereo. So we have a lot of plugins here. Mainly, as I said, they are dynamic processor plugins. Let me show them. For example, we have this Lex. It's a compressor, of course. For my understanding of it, it's basically an LA2A imitation. It's really cool. I don't know if it sounds like a real LA2A. I also don't care, really, honestly. It sounds good. You have 3 different modes here, flat and 2 fat modes. And yeah, no, very easy. Peak reduction, gain, and the behavior like compression, limiting, and disemphasis, which I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like any control. I don't know. Really nice. Let's go on this. It's basically a bus compressor. In my opinion, it can be much more than a bus compressor. Typically, when you think about compression on a bus, you think about the SSL compressor, which makes like that gluey compression, as they call it. This can be much more extreme, and you have to be a little careful with it. But it's really nice. Also, you have a gate. A dual band gate, which is really cool in my opinion. You can see you have different parameters for 2 frequency bands. You have this transpire, which is basically a transit shaper. Not really crazy about it, but it's nice. You have the tri-leveler. I don't know how to pronounce it, okay. Sorry, I'm Italian. I'm Italiano. It's basically a plugin that allows you to keep a constant loudness perceived. Then you have this Quadracom, which is one of my favorite. I use it quite often. It's a multi-band compressor intended for mastering. We have this Vola 2, which is basically a vocal processor. It's basically a compressor, a little bit more suited for vocals. And then some of my very favorite are these 2 plugins, the Bass Professor and the Bass Professor Mark II. These are basically like the CLA bass from Waves. I think that's the name, which is a very cool plugin. And what that plugin does basically creates a very scooped sound, which is very cool for bass, of course, especially in metal and modern genres where you don't want that boxy bass. And then you have some other parameters like you have here, and you have this profess slider here, which controls how much the V-shape processing is accentuated. It's very cool. We're gonna see it later. You can see that this is the Mark II, but I think that you should not think about this plugin as an updated version of this. They are basically 2 different beasts. This, as you can see, it's a little bit more bare bones, but sounds really cool. A little bit more vintage, if you want, suited for different applications. They also add a limiter, which is, I think, it's called the Unlimited, which they told me it's really cool, but it was not developed for the JSFX format, so we cannot have it on Mac, which is a shame, of course, because I'd really like to try it out, but you know, we have all of these plugins, we can do without it. Okay, so let's try them out. Let's start on drums. So here we have a mix of the cover that we recently did with my band Fate Embodied, a cover of the Anti-Cosmic Overload by Obscura. If you haven't seen it, I'm gonna link it somewhere here. So I have a couple stems here. Let's hear the drums. Okay, so let's start by applying something like, let's see, let's start with the bus compressor, for example. Here it is. So let's let's just mess around with parameters. So you can see it's really effective if you overdo it. So just be very careful with it. Just keep the attack and release quite, you know, loose, and the ratio not too high. But it's really nice. Of course, there is a volume difference, so let's try to match them. Let's try messing around with the knee. As you can see, it's very effective, so be careful with it. I think that it's very apparent in this plugin when you just pull on the knee in comparison with other plugins. I don't know if it's good or bad, but you know, just be aware of it. So yeah, I think this is a general very good plugin for compression. It's very versatile actually, in my opinion. Let's move to the bass, for example. Let's try that Bass Professor, which I really love. Bass Professor Mark II. So this version is a little bit more modern, in my opinion. Sounds a little bit more scooped, more suited for metal. The main feature of this plugin is this Profess slider. So let's hear it. Can you see, can you hear how the sound gets bigger and more scooped? Very cool for bass. Let's try to add some dirt, which is some distortion. So it's a particular type of distortion. Is very, I would say, mellow. It's not very aggressive. Don't overdo it, in my opinion. Can definitely be too much. But just to add a little bit of flavor, I think it's good. Let's give this bass a little bit more sub bass. So you can see you have all these frequency parameters, which is basically boost in different points of the frequency spectrum. So let's try them. So as you heard, these controls are really aggressive. They can really ruin the sound, but if used tastefully, these are actually the right spots on the bass that are very useful if you want to shape it a little bit. Let's try it with and without it. Of course, there is a huge difference. Let's hear it with drums. How cool is that? Very nice. So let's move on to another very cool plugin, which is not a dynamic processor, and that is the lead delay. So it's really nice. It's not the most innovative delay out there, but here are some parameters. It can get really interesting. Let's go to this guitar solo. So let's sync it with the tempo. Let's put it in quarter notes. Let's lower the feedback. So the cool thing is that besides the dry mix and the wet mix, there is also this color mix, which is another layer where you can apply these filters here. So of course, even here it can get a little bit too much. Definitely bad. And also I noticed that if you push this slider too much, it can give you a little bit of some phase issues. So make sure to check it. Let's put it on the dry mix. So yeah, really nice delay. Let's try something on the vocals. So for example, let's try the slacks and just hit this vocal very hard.
Practically what the rocket band, destructive flame in my career, precede another sort of way.
Let me just EQ these vocals a little bit.
Practically what the rocket band.
So what we can do here is add another compressor, which is the HBC here that we used before.
Yellow night messages remain. Spinning, pillow from the ocean, freezing alone in a life. Think on your fear, cross your mind. A night man.
Let's try on the bass mix the Quadracom. So this is basically a multi-band compression, and what I suggest you to do is that just use it so that it compresses a little bit of the high and the low band and leaves the other two quite untouched. I don't know what it is, but it just gives the track a little bit more of life, of movement, you know. And yes, don't overdo it, of course, because it can really ruin the mix if you push it too hard, but in a subtle way, it's really cool. It's already harder.
Watch your face. A treatment something, a tragedy. Watch your face. A treatment something, a tragedy.
So yeah, it's very subtle, but the sensation I have when using this is that it pops out a little bit more. Just very subtle. It controls the low and the high end a little bit, but it also gives them a little bit more of life, in my opinion. So let's actually try also the tri-leveler, which is very, very interesting. So as I said before, you can set here the target, and then basically it will manage to keep it at a certain level. So let's try it. As you can see, it's immediately very, very high, much higher. So let's put it like -14. And as you can see, it's adjusting the input to get to these targets. It's not super fast. It kind of needs to adjust a little bit, but it works quite well. So if we try to mess around with the volume, this is an EQ that I put before the track just to control the volume that goes into this plugin. So let's try to fuck around with it. And as you can see, it takes a little bit of time, but then it gets there. So let's try to push it really, really hard. So yeah, as you can see, it takes a little bit, but it gets there. It's really nice, I think, for some applications. If you, for example, you are podcasting, if you're streaming, it's really nice. Of course, these settings were very extreme, so we were kind of pushing it to the limit, but I think it handles it quite well. So a really nice suite of plugins that I think they should be known a little more, because I use them a lot and I think they are very useful, especially if you are in a home studio like me, if you produce yourself at home and you don't want to put in the cash for the big guys in the industry, which of course they are great. Anyway, check them out if you want. And yeah, let me know if you use them and what do you think about them. Hope this video has been helpful, and just yeah, download them, have fun, mix some music. Okay, see you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.